Jim.
Hey, how are you?
I'm pretty good. I am getting excited for summer. It's finally warm here in Wisconsin, and I've got daughter's birthday party tomorrow. Of course, long weekend. It's gonna be a good weekend.
You earned it, right? With the snow in May and everything, you earned it.
Yeah. We always have one. I think we had a late April one this year, and that always every year we always get one of those. Like it, so. The question for us is always like for me I should say is always is it gonna snow before or after my birthday, which is like right in the middle of April. So this year, yeah. But um yeah, so and how are you doing? Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
I'm good. I was preparing my Windows 98 machine that I've been working on, and I got connected to the internet and everything else, and I bricked it last night. And so I could show you. Want to see something?
New hardware being bricked in a Windows 98 machine is very on brand
You
though.
want to see something? Here, look
Yeah,
at this.
sure.
Let's see if it will show up. I don't even know if it will show up. Um, let's just see. I guess it's a black screen, but let me see if my cam link will actually find anything. Um,
And if it's stuck in like DOS text mode, that won't capture very well, I bet. So,
no, it's not capturing.
yeah.
So anyway, yeah, it's what I'm seeing right now is it's impossible to reinstall Windows 98. Your disk has been lost.
Fun.
Your hard disk has been lost. This is all in Italian. Anyway, yeah, that's how things are going for me.
Cool. One of the cool things. I should we'll back into what we're gonna look at today and kind of the history, because now this will be kind of like sort of the second or third time we've done like some retro web and retro computing stuff on Reclaim TV. But one of the things that will be interesting that I have not played with, but I see a lot of retro computing like YouTube channels play with, is using um, compact flash cards for storage on like machines of that era. Because what you can do is compact flash apparently use the same communication technology as IDE, which is what those drives are. And so you have to buy an adapter, of course, and the card. But then what people will do is they'll set up their machine how they like it or whatever, and then they can back the card up and have like, because computing, especially at that time, is so volatile. It was really easy to break things. And then it's
Yeah,
like, all right, reinstall Windows, start from scratch. So it kind of sucks. So
yeah, it's interesting too because I mean the problem I'm having is linked to the IDE drives, and I've been following some of these old retro forums that are kind of fun, and you get on them, and like they're
mhm.
like go into safe mode and delete the IDE like device manager, or
Mm,
go in and do that. And so I've been doing some of that stuff, and like this is all like walking in the dark, kind of
mhm.
feeling my way around. But I'm used to this kind of stuff. I learned a lot of this through the fixing the arcade games, and
Sure.
this is kind of my new getting into it. And I'm not too surprised this happens. I think the next point is I take apart the board and install everything. But the hard part is with working with some of these machines for me is like like you have virtual disks you can easily get and create virtual disks, but it's hard to get your hands on the actual disks.
Yeah, for
And
real
God
hardware.
forbid anything go wrong with your CD-ROM, which I had the problem which led to this. um, you're really like the dependence on the physical media for getting stuff back up and running versus the internet is a really big difference. And it's
Yeah.
like you have to have all of these different things, license keys. Like it is so much overhead. to work with
software
these freaking computers.
software for that era of computing is, and earlier to be clear, is really difficult because yeah, it's hyper specific time period wise. It's not like, so like my mister that we'll use a little bit later is emulating a 486, and so it's like, okay, that's good for hard software running from like 1990, like 5 and earlier. And once you get older or newer than that, it's too slow. And that may sound like, oh, that's not that bad. It's like, well, but not too early, right? Because before like 1990, that's not really any good either. And so it's funny to think of how fast computing, home computing, changed at that time, and we're not really used to that anymore. Like I've got downstairs, I have like a personal laptop that's like this old Dell laptop that my dad didn't need anymore, and I like to have it as like a tinker machine for like Linux and stuff and whatever. That thing is like 11 years old. Like, and is it fast? No, it is not fast. But I can, like I can check my email, like in a pinch I could do work on it even, and that was really not the, I mean, you have a 5-year-old machine in the 90s, it's basically useless, for lots of things anyway. So, and I think that contributes, but then also like what you're saying is there's a kind of a double-edged sword with computing and retro computing, in that one of the cool things is that it's easy kind of for folks to take old software and make it run on Windows, like modern Windows, new computers. And you see this, like companies like GOG have a whole storefront that's about restoring old games and making them work with, and they, it's this, depending on the thing, relatively easy to do. um and so that's really cool, but conversely it means like the actual original version of these things becomes even rarer because people value it less, um because they're like, well, why would I play the CD-ROM version of this when I could just load it up on my new computer? Which, sure, most people shouldn't, need to bother. But if you're trying to make an old machine experience, that doesn't really. It's hard. It's really hard.
I like looking at and trying to understand the motherboards, and so something I never really did understand, and then I worked more recently on helping my son build a computer for gaming. Like I like to see just how similar the computing mechanism still is, even though, like you said, it's changed dramatically in terms of speed, and like there's no more parallel ports, and a lot of these
Sure.
ports go away. But the basics of these machines
Oh yeah.
are really consistent from the mid 90s and probably much earlier up and until just the one we built a couple of years ago. So I'm interested in that kind of the weird consistency and speed being the major difference. But like you said, a computer you bought in 1997 versus one in 2001 was going to be the difference between
Yeah.
playing a whole new generation of games.
Or
You know what
even
I
like
mean?
visiting websites. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
even at that time, we were starting to get into more complex websites, and you know, that could do more. I was just listening to this podcast, and they had a little fun fact about like there's a, apparently, like the first guy who put in an order on Amazon for a book has a building named after him. Um, he wasn't associated with the company. It's just their first customer, and so Amazon named a building after him, and on the one of the buildings on their campus. And this is in 1995, and I'm like, can you imagine in 1995 if you put your credit card into a website and people would have been like, "What do you want to get your identity stolen? What are you doing?" But I'm sure this dude, and who knows, maybe he knew what he was doing and had, but like that was mind blowing. I remember in like the early 2000s, the idea of online shopping, at least where I'm from, was thought of as like, you don't really want it. That's risky, you know. But my point is, the landscape was changing quickly, and yeah, you really had to keep up if you were into this stuff, especially. But yeah, so what we're talking about today is a tool called Protoweb, and we'll show it off. But basically, it is a tool that lets you. It's a service really that's trying to restore the basically the '90s web experience in a really interesting way. So let me get this up here. So this is the website for it, protoweb.org. And it's a really fascinating effort. And I'm kind of fascinated with this idea of kind of the nostalgic web and sort of really using it in a meaningful way, because I find it on the one hand really kind of cool and interesting, and on the other hand it sort of breaks my nostalgia in a way that I think is good and healthy, where you think of like, oh, wasn't this stuff all better, and it's like some of it was, some of it wasn't. And I think that's a good thing to do sometimes. um, and So this is really cool. So we'll demo it, show how it works and everything. But I did want to mention, if this is your jam, if you're watching this and this is your jam, we've done kind of a few versions of this in the past. I've before used a service called the OldNet, which actually connects directly to the Internet Archive and basically proxies and requests websites from the Wayback Machine directly. This service doesn't really work very well anymore because they're basically the Internet Archive, being I believe they're a nonprofit, um, and they get so much traffic, they have to really heavily control the speed of everything. They just have to rate limit it, and this service is getting so rate limited as to they have a warning message, literally like, I'm sorry, it doesn't really work anymore. But it is a neat service. And if you want to see how that one worked, I have done a couple things. So there's a Reclaim Open session um, from our July recap of Reclaim Open, where we talked about the '90s living room setup with Mister that we all set up in just right in the for the art fair presentation thing.
It was awesome.
It was super cool, and we've got a whole recording where we're chatting about how that was set up and everything. So that's really neat. And then I also say I did like one of the first streams I ever did after starting at Reclaim, just testing my setup, honestly, was me trying to get this working and capturing my Mister. And this isn't like a structured presentation. This is just like, is my video working? That's like mostly what the stream is. And then I play with these tools a little bit. So that's there. And there's a bunch of stuff out there if you want to look up the OldNet or Protoweb as well. But we have a history of trying to do some of this stuff. And this, I will say, Protoweb is, I think, the best version of this that I've used. So it's super cool, and you don't actually need retro hardware to use it. So once we get your Windows 98 machine working later on, I'm sure you can try this out, because it's actually pretty easy to
It's
set
a big
this up.
if right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. We'll do it today on a Mister that's emulating a 486 computer running Windows 95, just because it's kind of a cool way to do it. But you technically don't need any of that to just try this out. So basically what this service is, like I said, it's a restoration of the '90s web in some ways that we'll explore. And it's just a proxy service. So you can go into your browser, and even like I'm in Firefox here, and if you go to your proxy settings, you can change this from use system to manual, and you basically just put in the settings that they tell you to put in. And I, don't keep it that way, because you probably need your web browser. So maybe do this on a different web browser that you don't use very often. Now I'm realizing, did I actually change that? Oh, I didn't. Good. But then they also have their own little browser setups, RetroZilla, Protoweb Edition, and Protoweb Browser, which basically come set up ready to use this. So that would probably be the way to go if you want to do this on Windows, on a modern Windows machine. Yeah, it's really cool. And we're gonna check it out. So I'm gonna switch over to my Mister setup, and we have to do some rearranging here. Okay. So this is my Mister. This is an emulation device, basically. That here we go. It can do a lot of different things. Emulate a lot of like 8 and 16 and mostly 8 and 16-bit like game consoles and arcade machines and stuff. But it can also do some very retro compute, like way older stuff than this. And about the newest thing it can emulate is a 486 in terms of like power. So there are I'm in the wrong menu here, but there's all kinds of stuff in here that I've always wanted to explore. Um, I think one of the next things I want to do is this does have a Mac core, and I want to see if I could get like, um, this would be a little outside of. This would be a pretty old machine to use on the internet, but maybe do some like BBS stuff with the Mac core would be kind of interesting. Um, and I do have that actually set up, but that's for another stream. But I even had a I want to do a blog post where I had my daughter try and use Mac kid pics to paint and draw on an actual old Mac with well an actual old Mac, a emulated Mac, and that was kind of interesting. And then she was like curious about why the screen wasn't in color, and like so. That was really fun. But
Yeah, I have all of these machines from the 80s around our house, but now here in this office. And my kids are like, yeah, that's interesting for you. They won't touch them. I mean, actually, they do like, one of the driving games and one of the shooting games. But in general, they laugh at my silliness when it comes to video games.
Yeah, so we're booting up here now. This is being given it's a Mister emulating a 486. There's some weird things about this emulation. It's not the most. So you can do some settings in here, and so I have it. It's emulating. It's a very accurate emulation of what a 486 can do, but it's a weirdly fast one that never existed. So this boots a little faster than like a real 486 would have booted Windows 95 and stuff
That's
like
pretty
that.
good, though.
But you want that,
Sounds
honestly, because this stuff is so finicky and pretty slow a lot of times. So, but here we go. I don't know if my audio came through, if you heard the login sound, but
yeah, it came through for me.
Perfect. So we're here now. A weird quirk of this that's kind of cool is that the Mister core for this and this Windows 95 like image that I'm using has a way to dial up. So it's using my Wi-Fi connection, of course, but you dial into it using a virtual hack basically that someone made for this. The cool thing for your setup once you get it working again is you just put an Ethernet card in, so you can just use your network, with caution, obviously.
One of the forums I read was like, that sounds like what I have sounds like a hack, like I got a virus. I don't believe it, but could you imagine if I got a virus on this fucking thing?
Yeah, man. I'm realizing that my aspect ratio is a little bit stretched out here because I think it's taking the 4:3 and stretching it out to 16:9. But I don't really want to mess with that.
I got a virus on my retro Windows 98 computer.
What are the odds?
I turn on 3 hours a week. Are you kidding me?
Does it make the dial-up noise? It doesn't in the Windows dialer, but there are other dialers that would do that. But and to be fair, I don't know if it would really make the dial-up sound in this weird hack version that I'm using here. So, but that would be cool. I should see if it would be possible. Shannon asked in Discord does it make the dial-up noise, and that would be really cool. So I've already got Netscape set up here, and actually, before we even get in there, I'm going to go to Internet Explorer where I don't have Protoweb set up, but what I do have is a homepage that I made that does not use HTTPS, because that's one of the big things with browsers of this era. None of them support the modern HTTPS stuff. So in fact, you'll see right here, it's just not this whatever web page this is trying to go to from Microsoft is not going to work. But
I now understand um, the whole argument that Dave Weiner was his name said that HTTPS will break the web because effectively, in terms of consistency, and I understand the idea of security, like you cannot access an HTTP site.
Yeah, I think I understand what he's saying, but I think that's a dramatization because there are plenty of other reasons why modern websites don't work on here too. And HTTPS is a big one. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a large one. But like, I'm sorry, like a lot of your browsers don't support like anything modern JavaScript either. So I I but I
Fair
get it.
enough.
You
But
know?
does every site need HTTPS? Like,
No.
does my blog need it?
Well,
No.
there's something to be said too. It's a complicated thing. I would say probably not. No.
No.
I think certainly every site doesn't need to force HTTPS. I think every site should have it available because there are advantages to using HTTPS everywhere for privacy. And, if you're like a journalist in in your, or a dissenter of some kind, you probably do need that. But and so I think the argument for that kind of stuff is sort of that privacy gets better when everyone is browsing that way, because then you don't have like, why are these people using the secure stuff but these people not, right? It's that. So, but I would agree. I don't think forcing HTTPS necessarily made them, is necessary. But I made this little website. I host it, of course, in my cPanel. It's called nossl.jaden.me. It's the only website I have that doesn't actually. It forces not HTTPS. You can't visit this over HTTPS. And I made it just for this. I put this little best viewed in Netscape thing because I think I'm funny, and I put a couple links to things that work here. So this is just still up on CERN's domain, the one of the original versions of the World Wide Web page, which is super cool. It's so funny. I'm using like a modern mouse with this Mister, and I keep trying to scroll, and that does not work on Windows 95. Um, but this is so cool. Every time I show this, I have to point out to people that I think this page is hilarious with the context of today, which is like, what's out there? And you can look for many different points of view, and all kinds of things. And you can go by subject, and it just tells you like, these are the pages on the web. And if you know about anything else, email us.
There's no top to the web.
Yeah, no time. Yeah, because not a directory, right? But I just love, like, it's like, if you know of other websites, like, let us know. It's like, and that's such a cool, like, that obviously this is written from a time of this protocol being brand new and not many people had access to it, so it makes sense. But I just remember also that being like a thing, like you would talk about. For me, this would have been like late 90s, early 2000s before I really but it was like, oh, I know about this website that you should check out, and I just kind of miss that. So that's cool. I guess there's some element of that, but there's a few other ones I have on here. There's a website called Never SSL that's literally designed for people to test if their connection is working but they don't have HTTPS available to them. There's a handful of things I got bookmarked on here. One of the coolest ones I think is 68k.news, which is like a Google News proxy someone set up that lets you like view news, but they proxy it to this very simple service. And then another one is Frog Find, which basically is a front end, I think, for DuckDuckGo. So you can use the real DuckDuckGo search engine. Oh, there you go. No, I'm good without autocomplete. And of course, get results. But if you click on a page, it will also try to scrape the page and deliver the
Wow.
text of the page for you, which is kind of cool. So
That's crazy.
those are some non-proto web services that you can check out. But I've got Netscape installed here, and this I've already set up the proxy settings for it for Protoweb. So um, it's actually I'm gonna pull up my modern computer here again real quick, but it's pretty simple to set up. Basically, you just go to the protoweb.org page and you go to their quick start guide. It says, "Hey, get an internet connection, set up an internet browser, and then you're gonna want to." Oh, interesting. So well, yeah, you can visit it directly, but if you go to their step guide, they say here's how to do this in Netscape, and you put these proxy settings in, that kind of stuff. So it's pretty slick, honestly. It's something that's relatively easy to get going with. But here we go. Here is the real thing working. This is Netscape running on Windows 95 connected to Protoweb. And Protoweb has its own nice homepage too. So it's inode.com. And this is really neat because this actually gives you some like places to go and check out. And this is just Protoweb is a community thing where they're trying to restore these old web pages. So they host all of this as a community project, and then they do have some connections out to the Wayback Machine to visit other pages, but a lot of this they do also have a lot of things on their homepage that they host directly. So this is really neat. They even have a working fake search engine for this stuff, and this is funny because this is Comet, which is I forget the name of the show, but I watched it a couple years ago. But it was about like it's like a fictional take on the home computer and early internet revolution. Halt and Catch Fire is the show.
Ah,
And there's a search engine that they're building in there, and eventually I won't spoil it for anyone that watches it, but something happens to the company, and it's called Comet. So. But you can go in here and search for. I mean, I don't know. What do we want to search for? It's all old stuff in here.
Smurfs.
So. Smurfs. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So we got a cheat, and of course, this is searching their archive, right? So this is not necessarily exactly what you would have gotten.
A lot of cheat codes.
Apparently, some cheat code website that they've archived with PlayStation cheat codes. So we'll go there and check it out. And I should mention that this is, in a very accurate way, quite slow because I'm using this dial-up adapter. It does actually communicate at dial-up speeds, in my case. So and this is sometimes it's hard.
Look at the progress bar there. That's awesome.
Yeah,
26%.
Man, I miss banner ads that just GIFs.
Oh, look at that. That's wonderful.
Here we go.
It came. It loaded.
The other cool thing is they'll have their own fake banner ads if they were unable to capture ones. So WarpStream is a different project associated with them that is actually a capture of YouTube sans like 2009, which is really interesting. And it even kind of looks like YouTube. This computer we're using on the Mister, way not capable of playing that kind of video. That's way later, but it is kind of cool. And it even uses it can use emulated Flash player and everything, which is insane. So this is one thing, right? They've got some really cool just things bookmarked on their homepage, of course. Like we go to the id Software page and check out what's new with Doom or Quake or whatever. I wonder when this one was captured actually. 97, I guess.
Yeah, that GIF is nice there.
They've got the GeoCities archive is part of this. So most of GeoCities, I believe, for whatever
is in this.
In this, yeah. So that's really cool. Yeah, and the other cool thing is you can just put in URLs and see if they work. And if they don't work, it'll offer you to get it from the from the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine. So maybe I'm interested in news about the Green Bay Packers, which is this is always my reference point, by the way, for old web stuff. I mean, obviously, I live in Wisconsin. I'm a Packers fan, but like this is what I remember my dad doing with the internet when I was little. Is he would read stuff about like the Packers. So, anyway, the Packers did not have a website in the Protoweb archive, but you can use the Wayback Machine, and we can grab it from a bunch of different years. Now, not all of them are going to be necessarily, available, but I can go here like 97. Let's go.
When did they win?
I
They
think it
won
would have
like
been
97.
97,
Yeah.
but I don't know when this, it could be from September, what this archive.
NFC Championship rematch. Travis looking to Carolina.
It probably would have been 98. I'm a bad Packers fan right now. I should know that.
Yeah, it might be 98.
I think it would have been the 97 season, and then 98
Yeah,
would have been.
exactly. I think so, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so
and this internet won't help us find that out quickly.
it's cool. I'm just now seeing in Discord we've got Zach Whalen in the Discord who helped us with Wendy's and has helped you with all kinds of projects like this. So yeah, so the cool thing here too is when you do grab something from the Wayback Machine, it actually appends a colon, and so this archive is from 1997, and 06115. I'm not sure if that's like a month day, or I don't think so, because this is September. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know if that's month, day, or some like ID number, but my point is the first 4 numbers of the year. So you can go in here and also just change it and say, let's check out 1998, and just change it right from there. And sometimes the Wayback Machine doesn't have. I'm guessing they have. So one of the peculiarities of the Wayback Machine is if you ask for something older than it has, it will sometimes just bring you to the closest date. So it looks like they may not have had a copy of this in 1997, 98, because I'm getting the same version of it back over and over again.
Yeah.
But you can do this with all kinds of websites too. So like we could go to like, I don't know, Apple's website. And I don't know if this one will be in the... Okay, so this one is natively in Protoweb because it didn't ask me to load it from the Wayback Machine.
Huh.
And so we can pre-order Mac OS 8. That's pretty cool. Not
and
super
the Mac
well
BMW kind of branding together, right? That's super interesting.
It's so weird. Register today for free CD-ROM. Let's do it.
The whole advertising of that era on the web and trying to figure that out was fascinating. It's like, how are we going to figure this out? How are we going to make money on this thing?
Yeah. Movies from Mars. QuickTime VR takes you out of this world.
Yes. Beautiful. That's when Mac was hurting too. The OS 8.
This was not a great time.
They had their comeback with the OS 9, right?
Yeah, because those original iMacs would have been the when they first came out. I'm not exactly a Mac historian, but I think like 98, 99 is when they would have been coming out. So this is just before then in most cases. And they would have, I think some of them would have run OS 8, which on Apple's website we were just looking at, they were just about to, they were like, hey, you could pre-order OS 8 or Mac OS 8.
Because I think OS 9 really started to come like 2003, 2004, right?
That's OS 10. So OS 9 would have came out, like I remember video editing on the iMac G3s, those color ones that everyone remembers.
Yeah.
Those were running OS 9. Now those were like old when I was using them to video edit already, but that's what they were running. So most of them ran OS 9, I believe, and there were some of them that you I don't know if those technically supported OS 10, but then OS 10 came out 2000, 2001, but it wasn't popular until its like second or third release. There was definitely a time where people were like, OS 10 is super slow. You shouldn't use that yet.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it was not a clean time, it was a messy transition in a lot of ways. So here's the QuickTime VR. I don't know what QuickTime VR is. I mean, I know what QuickTime is, but I guess there's a lot of VR was like a word that I feel like applied to a lot of things in the 90s. That wasn't what we think of now
Yeah,
necessarily.
that's thinking. It's interesting thinking about doing VR in the late '90s. Well,
Yeah.
look at that, like '96 on your computer. Like,
Because
what would
they
that
weren't
mean
talking
in
about
those
headsets
times?
here.
No
I think they're just talking
video.
about like, hey, it's video that looks like
It's like
real life and you can
360
pan it
video, I
around.
think.
Yeah. Okay. So I could see how they could say that, but we wouldn't call that VR anymore, really.
No, call it 360 video.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. So there's, what was Microsoft up to? Let's find out.
Microsoft dominating.
Yeah.
We know you're
Crushing it.
using our services illegally.
Why are
We
you
will get you.
why are you using Netscape, man? Switch.
Yeah, exactly.
So their copy that they have here, so they're talking about Windows 2000 coming out, and oh yeah, so this version that we're looking at here is from 2000. But again, the cool thing is we can do that and say like, all right, let's look at like the 1998 version. How about that?
It's funny. I'm reading Windows forums right now that are, last post 23 years ago. It's so interesting. So it was right around that era with
Yeah.
some of the issues I'm trying to solve. So this is
Okay.
familiar.
So this one is, all right. So this is 1998. And I wonder if I hit some caching things. These kind of services are still. This is not, the maybe the most underscrutable or even reliable services. These retro web things. But I'm.
It looks good though.
Oh, you know what? Here it says join the Microsoft Office 2000 preview. So it looks like I did have to. It was possibly a caching thing that I was running into here. So tune in
That,
schools. Tune into the Y2K interactive teleconference.
how about Microsoft and the freedom to innovate?
Yeah.
What's your like what God?
Where are you
You
allowed to
want
innovate?
freedom?
Let's tell you about where you're allowed to
Yeah,
innovate.
exactly.
Where,
We forget.
this time, Linux stuff would have been very early, but existed.
Yeah.
But like, I wonder if they've got anything archived in their search engine around Linux. But man, it would have been, only a few years old.
Oh,
So
learning about Linux. Look at that.
okay, here's a 2001 GeoCities page.
That's great. Really cool. Look at that. A good starting point to help people.
JavaScript error. Can you
Uh-oh.
imagine if today, every time a JavaScript error happens, your browser popped up a window letting you know? If anyone doesn't know what I mean, open the console in your developer tools and just every red thing.
Well, we basically have that if you live in Europe for any website.
Oh God.
What,
Yeah,
can
like
you
cookies.
read this? Could you cook? I mean, God, it could not be worse.
Okay, so this is Linux per se is only the kernel of the operating system. Yes.
What are 3 ways to install Linux?
The real way. The partition, secondary system under Windows. Yeah, I've heard about this. This is interesting. This is available even in 2001. Is that you could actually, like, some distributions would let you like install Linux to a folder in your drive, and then you could modify the boot manager and boot into either without partitioning your drive, which is
So, how about that link right there? What
Yeah.
is that? What happens there?
Okay, so they don't have this one. Let's see though if
It's
Internet
nice stuff.
Archive has it.
I like the way they do that.
It is nice because it's actually valuable, I think, to be able to really easily know what is their archive and what is the Wayback Machine. Because there are
Yeah.
some qualitative differences. Wayback Machine, especially in the 90s, doesn't catch everything. It barely existed at that time. It's really bad with images at that time, I found. And it's really cool to be able to switch years really seamlessly. So
Look at this, Michael Johnson giving a full-on HTML
Red Hat.
tutorial from Red Hat on Linux. Good for him.
Incomplete list of ported programs and other software. Who uses Linux?
Legal status of Linux.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the legal status?
No one's required to register a copy, so we don't know. Cool.
One brave soul, Harold T. Alverstadt, has decided to try and count Linux users the hard way, one by one. You're willing to be counted as a Linux user, please use the web form available at. That's so awesome.
Amazing. I love this too. This is a nice touch that it rewrites URLs to keep you in the same year as much as possible.
Yeah, I
Um,
like that. That's nice. I wonder if that web form is still alive.
yeah, I mean,
Imagine.
I could look on my.
It is a seamless Netscape experience, though, I have to say. Like,
It's
it
great.
does seem like how you would experience Netscape in the day. I did, right? So, I mean, I don't know how good my memory is, so I don't want to pretend, but you would wait for the page to load, that you would have that little icon up top with the comets hitting the
Yeah,
end. It's pretty cool.
we got to bring back loading gifs,
Yeah, it's
or
cool.
whatever you want to call that.
Look at that.
Um,
There's the site.
wow. So there are 182,000 registered, and on 100, that's interesting. More
Use,
users than machines.
yeah.
um,
My guess at the number of Linux users is 17 million.
huh?
It's a
Is he
fair
just
guess.
multiplying these?
I guess he did. I don't know how he came up with that. Like, I got to think a tenth of the people who really use them answered.
Yeah. This is interesting though. And again, it's so cool for, I don't know. I find this type of exploration really interesting.
Oh
And I
yeah,
will say, for if you're browsing using Protoweb on a slightly newer machine, like maybe Windows XP era, um, you can browse newer stuff that's like Flash, and it'll be
yeah.
restorations of Flash games and things like that, which is really cool. Now that would run horribly on this; that would not be any good. But or you could do it on a modern machine too. Um, the cool thing about modern browsers is they're so fast now that we can actually emulate Flash in JavaScript, and it's like a secure-ish way to do it. There's a Pepper, I believe, is a project around that. I want to what is it? Use any browser here. Oh, this is making fun of the like the thing that I had on
Robber.
my this is on my little no SSL page, the like best viewed in Netscape 3. Those were all over some websites back then, and this is saying like use whatever you want, shouldn't matter, which is fair, you know.
It's funny. Zach is talking about Eric talks about that Netscape icon was colloquially named the Throbber, which is hysterical. And Zach talks about the old web.today is blocked on UMW's network because
Yeah,
of
and I
proxy
wonder,
avoidance.
probably there could be good reasons for that. So typically campus networks don't allow you to put in web proxies. For a lot of reasons, web proxies are sometimes abused by viruses and malware. There are other IT reasons why you wouldn't want folks using proxies. And when we set up the 90s living room on UMW's campus, I used my phone's hotspot to just completely avoid that problem. Because I was like, this is probably, I tried. I was like, and I was unsurprised to find out it wasn't going to work on that network. That I think it would be surprising to find a campus network where a proxy service like this would work. You would probably have to use a phone connection or like a VPN. VPN might, so you would connect via the VPN and then use the proxy stuff inside of that. That could work, but yeah, it's a tricky thing, that's for sure. Um, yeah, yeah. Request the, you know, I I am definitely one of the first people to get disappointed or frustrated by weird network restrictions, but I've also been on the other side of that, so it's complicated for sure. Um,
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, I remember we had issues. We had to open up stuff when we did some of this at UMW, right? With your with your Mister.
Yeah,
I think what I'm
I
realizing
hotspotted it from my phone is what I had to do. So
what I'm realizing from this is Misters are very hard to get, and it's more than an emulation, right? It's an FPGA board.
yeah, it's people are starting to call it hardware emulation now, which is I think a fair way to do it. Instead of
Yeah,
emulating the software and translating it and making a best guess, you're using an FPGA to reconfigure that FPGA to work like a certain amount of chips in the hardware.
yeah,
So in this case, it's working like a 486 CPU and some of the motherboard components on the board. Not all of them though, but uh, yeah. And lucky thing with Mister stuff is there is good news coming. The Mister stuff has just been getting the really hard to acquire and then
yeah.
really expensive because of that. I think just the main board that you need is like $350 now. Like I paid
Jeez.
like less than $200 for mine. Not that that's cheap, but it was within the realm of like okay, you know. And then I got the additional boards for analog output and
Yeah,
a USB hub, which aren't the analog output one is pretty necessary because it has some other stuff that it can do as well that enables more systems and things. But anyway, those are inexpensive because those are made. They don't have FPGAs on them. The main board that has that FPGA, and it's actually subsidized by Intel for educational purposes, which is why I think Intel is being like, yeah, we're kind of done with this, you know. Um,
yeah.
but luckily, the FPGA itself is not made by Intel. It's a different company. It's just this is so there's been an initiative, and there's a person out there that's like, hey, I got a shipment of 1,000 of these, and we're gonna make our own
Oh
Mister
wow,
compatible boards, and it should be about $100. So
$100.
yeah, way cheaper. Now
When is this happening?
it's still we don't know. So basically there's a demo out there, like a guy's got a video of his board working and everything, but like
Shoo.
we don't know when it's going to be out there yet. But I bet this year we'll start seeing them out there because they said basically because they were able to get a hold of Thoracic, I believe, whatever company makes the FPGA, and they were able to get a supplier relationship going. So they've got the FPGAs now, and because it's the same chip, it is 100% compatible if they do it right with the Mister. So it's not like you'd have to be a fork
Wow.
of the project; it would just run the same software, and that's
That's
already
awesome.
what they've demoed. Is it running the exact same software? So I think it'll be really cool. I think Misters will be more accessible soon and also in different form factors. I don't have the capability to like pull up my screen or sorry to show my Mister on camera right now real easily, but I will mention if I go find that old video, I did do it back then. Oop, that's not what I wanted. Mister, here we go. If I skip around, I'm sure I'll find it.
Yeah, there it goes. It's a cool thing. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, so that's the board from the here. That's a better
Yeah,
picture.
there it
So
is.
it's like the middle board is the Mister, the top board is the analog output board, but that it's kind of a misnomer. It also has RAM on it, so it's kind of necessary, even if you don't want to plug it into a CRT the way I like to. And then the bottom is a USB hub. My point is, this is very developer-y looking. And to be
Yeah,
honest, I flew with this to UMW. I was really worried about flying with this through TSA
yeah,
because I was worried, looking like, is this a bomb? Like, what is this thing?
exactly. Listen, Mister.
Yeah. Well, it looks real homemade, you know.
It does.
Like, so
It's funny.
anyway,
I go through TSA with like old game boards, which are circuit boards, which
sure.
probably have a similar. I've never gotten bothered about them.
I mean, I didn't get bothered, but I was just, you hear things, right? And I don't
Yeah,
fly that much, so it was kind of like,
yeah.
so we'll
It's
see.
interesting. I thought I would too. Like I'm with you. I thought they'd be like, what exactly is in this circuit board that you have here? And
Yeah, you know,
I was hoping they would, so I'd have someone to talk to. But nope.
I'm sure they would have been all over retro arcade games, you
Yeah,
know.
they've been. Oh, that's cool, right? Yeah, yeah. Where's
I got all the
that?
time, you know. I'm not busy. um,
It's awesome.
so the cool thing though is now that there is a folks starting to make their own replacement boards for the Mister, they're also talking about the idea of making something that's a little bit more plug and play. Not that this is hard to put together. To be clear, like I bought these three things and I literally like smushed them together. Like there was no soldering or anything. And then I bought those little wood panels and screwed those on. It wasn't hard, but you know, sourcing like three different things. So there's folks of saying that hey, now that we can do this, we could build all these boards into a nice little console device
Yeah.
or a handheld, which would be kind of cool. And so I'm interested to see what happens there. But yeah, it does sound like in the near future this is gonna be way easier to get. And to be clear, you know, this is just what we're showing today is honestly kind of a weird use case for the Mister in terms of what you would do with it. Like if you're interested in retro web stuff, you could use your own, you know, modern computer. I think this is such a fun way to experience it, and especially it's hard to portray now because we're looking at it on a stream, but normally I have this set up to an old PC CRT display, which are actually not that hard to get your hands on
No.
in the whole scheme of old displays. Old, good, well thought of TVs, CRTs are starting to get harder because they're dying and people
Yeah.
know that retro game enthusiasts like them. But PC CRTs, which to be clear, you can't plug a old console into. It's not the same thing. Um, they're less sought after. So I have a in my basement a Sony Trinitron from like 2002 that was $700 when it was new. It's like a high end
Yeah. Those are the
CRT
best.
that was going to be thrown away that I rescued. So
Those are valued now. Those
yeah,
Sony
now
Trinitrons.
I see this the one I have being sold on eBay not for $700 but like a few $100s.
Absolutely. Yeah. How
Um,
much does it weigh?
it weighs so much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
Those
21
things
inch
are so heavy.
PC CRT, which is a very large CRT monitor.
I have a
Um,
27-inch that I got here. Someone gave it to me, and I swear this thing is 200 pounds.
yeah, and
It's like what?
yeah,
I
and
can't lift it alone.
that's a TV. So like, yeah, the 27-inch TV size ones, man, those are just,
They're
I
insane.
yeah, the when I say 21 inches large, I mean for a PC monitor at that time. That would have been just crazy big. But yeah, for consumer TVs, oh
Oh
man,
yeah,
yes, and they're so heavy. Unfortunately mine died, but I also had a 27-inch. It was not a very nice CRT. It was like a Zenith thing. But I mean, it doesn't really matter because I'm looking to emulate what I remember, not you
yeah,
know the state of the art necessarily.
yeah. That's
Um,
right.
and but mine died unfortunately, and there I had to get rid of it because I was like not gonna dig into. As my understanding is, you don't really want to open those things up unless you really know what you're doing. So
You just yeah. I mean, what I learned with working on monitors a little bit is that you can get electrocuted.
yeah,
And it won't kill you probably, but like there are stories of it throwing you across
it
the
won't kill
room
you.
and
Probably is
frying you a
not
bit.
where I want to be.
But like literally, like I that's the first thing when you did like these repair on these games is like the first thing you hear is, "Did you discharge the monitor?"
Yeah.
And then it's like that's a whole thing, and I'm like, "What the hell does that mean?" Ah, you know.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun, and you know, in the Mister itself, there's a ton of stuff you can do with it. Like I said, like I'm starting to get into Mac Plus emulation, so that's Mac Plus is like 1986, 1987 era Apple hardware.
Wow.
Um, and I really want to do more with Commodore. There's a 64 and 128 emulator on here. And so I haven't really done anything with that, but that's another computer I'm curious about. I know you have a 128, like a real one. as well.
I do. Yeah, that's awesome. I wouldn't touch that like I am this one, but it actually is working very solid.
Mm.
Thing is weird. Tell you a weird thing about the Commodore 128. Like I I had it have it out on my desk because I'm actually using it,
Mm.
and I had a joystick plugged into it. So I load the thing on because anytime you want to load or reload a game or anything, you have to turn the machine off and then turn it back on. It's so crazy. So anyway, I'm in the process and I'm turning the machine back on and I get like garbage on the screen. I'm like, oh shit, my Commodore 128 went, and
Mm-hmm.
there's no way I'm going to be able to fix this thing. So I'm like freaking out and whatever and looking around. And I, by some chance, unplug the joystick and then turn it back on, and it's fine.
Hmm.
So a bad joystick brought the entire thing down. I
I
was like,
mean,
that is bizarre.
that is one of those things though, like we're so used to nowadays devices being sort of isolated and understandable in that way, but I could see it, right?
Yeah.
Like that it's yeah. It's
I was very
crazy.
happy because a joystick's super easy to repair or to replace.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was a lesson learned about how weird those machines are.
One other thing I really want to do with this, but haven't, is, and I don't really, honestly, I don't know what I'd write about, but I have the Office suite from about the right time period on here. Don't tell Microsoft I didn't pay for it. I'll just be honest. I did not buy Office 95 in 2024. Um,
Yep. Well, I have that now on tape.
yeah, you know, the key is well known. You can go get a copy from an Internet Archive and just put a key in that they tell you, and it just works. But anyway, I have front page editor on here, and I think it would be fun to make a front page website and publish it because it would work, right? Like that's
That's
the cool
right.
thing is that it's forwards, or I don't know
It's
if it's
a
backwards or forwards compatible, but you can take an old website and view it in a new browser.
it's a good assignment for Zach's class.
Yeah. Yeah,
Front
that would
page
be
editor.
amazing. The other one I don't know if I'd mess with, and frankly, I don't know that it would work. But there's also front page server, and
Oh
I
my
think it would
god.
be hilarious to serve a web page from here.
Oh my
Now,
god.
that is a horrible idea for all kinds of security reasons. But given that this is inside the Mister, less. There's
Yeah.
precautions I could maybe take, like put it on its own network or something. But I don't know if this would work with the whole virtual dial-up thing, and if it would be so slow, right? But who cares if it's slow, honestly?
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. That would be
Access
fun.
database. I mean, where does it end?
Yeah, there's
I
so much
mean,
stuff. I mean, I've got some. Of course, I've got a different hard drive image in here for a bunch of DOS games, but
Windows
I've
NT
also got some
network we could
Windows,
set up.
yeah,
Come on, we could
workspace
really
or a
do it.
work group. But I've got some of the old, like we got Ski Free here, which of course you need. So um, yeah, it's good stuff.
It was awesome. Well, this is great. What a great stream. Oh my god, that's great. What was that?
That's Ski Free.
Oh, that's great. I've never
Yeah,
seen that.
that's one of my
I
favorite
only knew like the
games back in the day.
mine. Remember that? It was the mine game and
Oh
solitaire.
yeah,
What was the mine?
what was
Mine
this called?
sweep. What's it
Minesweeper.
called? That's
Yeah,
right, Minesweeper. I remember that. I liked
Minesweeper.
that a lot. But I never saw that skiing game.
Yeah, that was we had that on an old computer, and it was part of Microsoft's Best of Entertainment pack that you could install.
My God.
They had some arcade ports that were like really they're bad ports, but at the
Yeah,
time it would have been cool at all,
absolutely.
you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so yeah, we got Galaxy in here.
One of the earliest communities on the internet I got involved with, meaning I discovered and started downloading, was MAME. MAME was really and still remains an
Yeah,
amazing community. And the fact that those ROMs that they thought, you're like, oh, they're for emulation. Actually, no. You burn those ROMs and put them in the actual games.
there MAME
Many
is
of
so
them.
much a preservation thing,
Yeah.
and honestly, this is the case with a lot of emulation, because the corporations, they're not preserving it. They don't
Yeah.
care,
I
right?
don't care.
They've moved on. They don't sell the thing. The
Bastards.
only people preserving games and stuff like that are these emulation communities. And yeah, MAME is a huge one. In fact, the Mr. GitHub, I believe, or maybe the main page or something, has a whole thing about MAME's involvement here, because they're basically like, look,
Yeah, they're
these
amazing.
arcade ports would not be possible without MAME, because in some cases we can't get our hands on boards anymore. And
Actually, yeah.
but MAME allows us to look at how the boards worked and then reverse engineer from there.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, and then literally, like, there's a game here that one of the boards doesn't have the ROMs on it. And
Sure.
so you think, oh, those ROMs, they just load through a MAME emulator. It's like, no, you grab those ROMs, and if I had the equipment, I could burn them to chips
Wow.
and put them in the thing. So, like,
That's cool.
those ROMs could virtually, obviously, they're just code, be
Hmm.
burned to chips that then are put into these actual physical boards, which is
Wow.
what people who repair these boards do.
Yeah. Yeah, and that would be, you can do things like, it's a little bit, there's more options, and some of them are not great options, but you can do some things like that with old PC stuff too. Ta-da. Um, old
There
PC
you go.
stuff too. So one of the things I should send you, once you got your PC back running, is there is
You're so
DOS.
hopeful for me. I like
You'll
that
get it.
about
You'll
you.
get it. There's DOS game collection packs, and with the right program, you can actually burn that to a drive. Not burn isn't the right word, right? But basically, you set up a partition, and then you boot into that partition, and it's basically like a nice menu interface, and it'll be like all the DOS games from 1998 that most people care about anyway.
Yeah.
Um, and that's super
Well,
cool, because the thing about DOS gaming is that, well, in '98 is not a bad example. That would have been kind of late for DOS games, although there certainly were some. But earlier ones, especially, there were like config changes and stuff you'd have to make,
oh
and
yeah.
this will do that
Sound
for you.
Blaster.
Yeah, exactly.
Change the Sound Blaster. I can remember it. Oh my God. Some of them were complicated. Like, I couldn't even get, like, there was one called Redneck Rampage where
Oh
it
yeah,
took me an hour to get through to set it
yeah.
up to make sure I could play it.
And sound stuff in particular was really nasty.
Really hard.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
One of the people I've been following said you should get a Voodoo 3D card for your thing. I was
yeah,
like,
get
that's
some GPU
interesting.
acceleration. Do
But
Quake.
oh gosh. Anyway, but this
All
was
right.
awesome, Taylor. Thank you.
It was fun. And I hope you have. I suppose it's probably not a long weekend for you.
No, it's not, which is great. I love these long weekends because everyone else is hanging out and I can work. Because
Hmm.
I just tell my family, like, no, 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 just work as usual.
Hmm.
Leave me alone. No, I love
Get a
my
lot
family.
done.
I don't mean that.
Well, have a good weekend anyway.
Yes.
And thanks for everyone who tuned in, and we'll see y'all next time.
All right. Bye bye.